What we're about to get into isn't just a recap of some forgotten mission from World War II. Think of it more as a blueprint. It's a detailed plan that shows exactly how an entire empire's belief in its own invincibility was completely shattered in just a single afternoon. This is the story of how technology, strategy, and just sheer industrial power all came together to solve an equation that everyone said was absolutely impossible. Okay, I want you to try and put yourself in this moment. Imagine you're Lieutenant Saburo Sakai. The date is April 7th, 1945. You're not just any pilot. You are one of Japan's most celebrated living legends, an ace with over 60 victories. You're strapped into the cockpit of your Mitsubishi Zero, climbing high into the sky above Tokyo Bay. And then, you see it, a swarm of silver aircraft that look all wrong. They've got these distinctive bubble canopies. These aren't bombers. They're single-engine fighters, and they are everywhere. For 3 solid years, your commanders, the strategists, the engineers, they have all assured you with mathematical certainty that this sight is physically impossible. And yet, there they are. As you squint through your gun sight, the impossible is circling at 25,000 feet, and the only words you can form behind your oxygen mask are, "This cannot be happening." And really, that's the core question here, isn't it? What happens when something you've built your entire strategy on, a fundamental truth, is proven completely false right there in the skies above your own home? For the Japanese High Command, this wasn't just some tactical problem they had to solve. No, this was an existential crisis. The very foundation of their defense had just crumbled. Now, to really get the scale of that shock, you have to understand the dogma. In early 1945, the Japanese High Command didn't just believe their home islands were safe. They were absolutely convinced they were untouchable. And this wasn't some fantasy based on fighting spirit. It was a cold, hard calculation based on the one thing they could always count on: geography. The Pacific Ocean was their greatest defense, this huge, unforgiving moat that no single-engine fighter in the world had the legs to cross. This number, this was the bedrock of that whole belief system. 1,500 miles. That's the absolutely brutal round-trip distance from the closest American base, a tiny volcanic rock called Iwo Jima, all the way to Tokyo, and then all the way back. For any fighter plane in existence at that time, making that journey and still having enough fuel to actually fight a battle, well, it was pure science fiction. It was considered an engineering impossibility, period. But here's the thing about impossible equations. While Japanese strategy was anchored to this limitation, American planners were busy trying to solve it. They weren't just hoping for a miracle, they were engineering one. And they were working on a 2-part solution that was designed specifically to shatter that tyranny of distance and completely rewrite the rulebook of aerial warfare. It was a solution that involved the perfect machine and a brilliantly simple piece of mass-produced tech. So let's meet part 1 of that solution, the North American P-51D Mustang. Now, the Japanese Zero was a legend, right? Famous for being able to outturn almost anything in the sky. But in a dogfight, an 86-mile-per-hour speed advantage isn't just a gap, it is a chasm. That's the difference between a cheetah and a gazelle. That kind of speed lets you dictate every single term of the engagement: when you fight, where you fight, and how you fight. A Zero pilot could be the most skilled aerial artist alive, but the Mustang pilot, he was a physicist, wielding the raw power of speed and energy. And this is part 2, the key that unlocked the whole thing. And it's so simple, it's almost insulting, but so revolutionary it changed the entire course of the air war. Drop tanks. Literally disposable gas cans. But what's really staggering is the economics of it. Each one cost about $15 to make, and American factories were just churning them out by the tens of thousands. Think about that for a second. For less than the cost of a single Japanese fighter plane, the US could give an entire squadron of its own fighters intercontinental range. This wasn't just a piece of technology. It was a weapon of pure economic warfare. So let's fly the mission with them. This wasn't some short hop. This was an 8-hour epic, a grueling test of endurance for both the pilot and the machine. Imagine, for 3 straight hours, you're just staring at an endless, empty ocean. The constant drone of the engine is your only companion. And every single one of those pilots is fighting this silent battle in their own head, that nagging fear that the slightest sputter from the engine means a very lonely death in the vast, cold Pacific. Then, through the haze, the coast of Japan appears, and Mount Fuji rises in the distance. The impossible is real, but the job has only just begun. And this is the moment where everything changes. For 3 agonizing hours, that Mustang is a heavy, sluggish fuel tanker, a marathon runner, conserving every single ounce of energy. But the second those pilots cross the Japanese coastline, they pull a single handle in the cockpit. 220 gallons of external fuel tanks and metal just fall away into the ocean below. And in that instant, the P-51 is reborn. It sheds its skin and becomes a purebred killer, a lightweight, high-performance predator, ready to hunt. The Americans knew the Zero had one trump card: its unbelievable agility in a slow-speed churning fight. So they developed a doctrine to make sure that card was never, ever played. The rule was simple, it was brutal, and it was drilled into every single pilot. Use your superior speed and power. You dive from above, you make one single devastating high-speed firing pass. They called it boom and zoom. And then you use your powerful engine to climb away, untouchable, and get set up for another attack. That temptation to stay in dogfight, to prove you were the better pilot in a turning battle, you had to resist it. If you stuck to the rule, the Zero pilot never even got a chance to line up a shot. And this shows you the result of that doctrine. In just 15 minutes of combat over Tokyo, the first real engagement between these two forces, the results were just utterly devastating. 21 Japanese aircraft were shot down for the loss of only 2 Mustangs in air-to-air combat. That is an exchange ratio of more than 10-to-1. This wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter, and it sent a shockwave through the entire Japanese military establishment. But the real damage wasn't measured in wreckage, it was psychological. It was the complete shattering of a warrior's spirit. These are the words of Saburo Sakai, that same legendary ace from the beginning, written his personal diary after he landed from that mission. Listen to what he's saying. He doesn't just see a better airplane. He sees a 5-year technology gap that he knows in his heart his country can never close. In that moment, he sees the future, and it is not his. And this table shows you exactly why Sakai was right. The P-51 wasn't some fluke. It was the inevitable product of an industrial giant that had fully woken up. I mean, just look at these numbers. In 1944 alone, America produced nearly 100,000 aircraft. A Japanese pilot in 1945 was lucky to have 70 hours of total flight time. His American opponent could have up to 600. Japan wasn't just fighting the P-51 Mustang. They were fighting the full, unstoppable might of American factories, American oil fields, and American training bases. It was a war of systems, and Japan's system was collapsing. So when we pull back and look at the whole picture, this one mission gives us that clear blueprint for victory. It shows how a single technological surprise can make an entire defensive strategy totally obsolete, literally overnight. It proves that real innovation is fueled by industrial power, and that even the best equipment becomes exponentially deadlier in the hands of superbly trained people. But I think the most important lesson is this. The ultimate goal of a strategic mission isn't just to destroy targets, it's to destroy the enemy's belief that they can possibly win. And that really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The Japanese military was absolutely certain of its island fortress, right up until the day it was breached. It really makes you wonder, what are the seemingly unbreakable assumptions that we hold today? In business, in technology, even in national defense? What impenetrable fortress that we believe in right now is just one brilliant innovation, one drop tank solution, away from becoming completely and utterly obsolete? What fortress is just waiting for its own P-51 Mustang to suddenly appear in the sky?